So before I start the gaming for tonight, I did watch over the weekend the live action Netflix Yu Yu Hakusho series, and I figured I'd give my thoughts on that real quick because it's a very interesting little take on Yu Yu Hakusho. That's getting too loud. Let's get some 8-bit Hakusho music from the GB games. So, alright, this got announced a while back, and it got its trailer last month, and it released last week. It is an adaptation of Yu Yu Hakusho, as you probably guess. It covers a very weird chunk of the story. It essentially covers the first half of the series. It covers the initial spirit detective saga, and then the Toguro stuff. But the thing is, it clears out all of the tournaments stuff, essentially. All of that's gone. There's no Genkai tournament. There's no Dark tournament. There's no Maze Castle either. That's gone. Essentially, the way it boils down, and I'm not gonna, without spoiling too much of the specifics, first episode kind of plays out like the anime does. Yusuke dying and then subsequently coming back to life. It's tied a little more directly into the main plot with how exactly he dies and what the purpose, what the cause of it is. It's very fast paced. The entire show is much quicker than you'd imagine. Well, it's as quick as you'd expect a live action adaptation that's only 5 episodes to be. By the end of the first episode, he's already back alive. It's worth noting each episode's about 40 to 50 minutes each. So the whole series is about 4.5 little hours, maybe a bit more than that, maybe a little more than that. First episode ends with him coming back, and it ends with him actually getting into a fight at the end with essentially a new... Again, they kind of combine multiple plot points into a new storyline. The insects that were related to the whole Maze Castle arc are instead just a natural occurrence from the demon world. And they show up and they actually infect people. And the end of the first episode has Yusuke actually kind of awakening his spirit power while fighting someone who's infected by it, who's harboring dark thoughts and stuff. And that's kind of the whole thing. If they're harboring dark thoughts, they get infected and they start turning into a demon. Not unusual, but also not exactly one-to-one with the original. And from there, it kind of follows the same structure. Yusuke meets Hiei and Kurama. Kuwabara joins in and he trains and gets his spirit energy. And then they go and rescue Yukina, and they do they do essentially that whole arc, but with the end being the actual Toguro fight, as opposed to having a whole dark tournament to then build that up. As a result, it's obviously very, very rushed. Genkai in particular, I know I've heard criticisms of her appearance. So, the second half of the third episode is Yusuke and Kuwabara training with Genkai, and by the end of it, Toguro shows up, and you know what happens between them in the anime. It happens there. Genkai's in the show for literally half an episode. And it does feel rushed, but I think that's kind of the intention. I think the whole intention of this adaptation is it's made for people who have either read the manga or enjoyed the original anime and just want to see a different take on it, a more dramatic take, which this is, by the way, definitely a more dramatic take. There is still some comedy to it, especially in Kuwabara. He definitely brings his actor is great. He brings the physical slapstick very well, especially at the beginning with the other gang members. Physically holding him back from I guess rushing Yusuke's wake. It's pretty good. The visual effects are really good. Older Toguro, who's down in the bottom left there, in particular, the special effects on his special malleable body are really good. All the characters I think were portrayed very well. But yeah, it's a lot more serious than the original series. Obviously, it's the original series was an anime, so there was a lot more room for slapstick humor and silly jokes. There's really no one-liners. There's not a ton of joking around. It's for the most part very serious. There's no anime music or any callbacks used, except for one in the first episode. The truck driver who ends up hitting Yusuke actually is listening to the opening theme to Yu Hakusho, which is pretty amusing. Nice little nod. Though again, it's not really the same thing. It's dramatic. It's also it's over the top dramatic. The best way I can almost the best way I could describe it. And I thought about it and thought maybe I shouldn't describe it this way, but like I kind of want to. It's like the equivalent of the live action Ace Attorney movie. It's serious. The characters don't really crack any jokes, but things are a little over the top. Not necessarily in a humorous way, but like clearly they're meant to be like, you know, the characters are meant to stand out. Their actions are meant to be exaggerated a bit. It's meant to be like anime, like live action anime. And ultimately, I feel like it does pull it off. Again, the pacing issues are gonna probably put a few people off from watching it. I would say don't lower your expectations going in, but like be pleasantly surprised by it. I was personally expecting this to fall on like the live action Cowboy Bebop to live action One Piece. I was kind of expecting it to fall right in the middle, and it does at points, but I feel like for the most part it kind of sways a bit more towards the positive end of things. I enjoyed it. If they do a second season that covers this, like the Sensui and the final arcs, I'd be down to watching it. Especially if they compress the last arc down a lot and get rid of all the bullshit, because that last, like, Demon World arc is terrible. At the same time, this feels very definitive. It feels like this was meant to be, like, a 5-episode thing, and then it's all, like, a one and done. So, I don't necessarily expect it to come back. But what's there is nice. The Toguro fight at the end is really well done. They cover a lot of the same ground. Like, despite the fact that it's very rushed, a lot of the same ground is covered. So it doesn't feel like there's, like, an undeserved victory to it all. Like, Yusuke still feels like he goes through almost the same amount of shit to get what he gets at the end. Which, speaking of, the spirit... again, talking about the visual effects, the spirit gun effect is really good. I like how they handled it, where it kind of, like, swirls up in his hand like a little energy tornado before he fires it. It kind of makes... It kind of feels like it flows a bit better, rather than have it just be like a glowy light. And yeah, it's really interesting. Like, a couple of the plot points are changed around to fit the new narrative, but for the most part, it's the same narrative as before. Sakio, this isn't really a spoiler because it's established in the first episode. Sakio's kind of the big bad of the show. Big bad as in he wants to open the portal to Demon World, just like in the original, but at the same time, he's a man of his honor, and he's a gambler, so, you know, you can put 2 and 2 together there, or watch the show and figure it out for yourself. Sounds a little weird. This is the first Game Boy Yu Hakusho game. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, there were no particularly terrible moments. I would say everything that shows up is accurate. Accurate to within the narrative they're weaving of the series being compressed. So it's like, okay, Maze Castle isn't there, but they still have the insects. There's no Genkai tournament, but Yusuke and Kuwabara still train with her. There's no Dark tournament, but Toguro still, like, you know, he still gets his big fight at the end. Actually, the whole of Team Toguro is there, because Bui and Karasu are there as well, and they fight Kurama and Hiei. And those fights were really good as well. As you could probably guess, you get to see both Kurama and Hiei pull out their signature moves / forms, and yeah, it's pretty good. They do a good job. Like, they do a good job of, within the time allotted, showing off everyone and making them feel powerful and making them also feel like they overcame something together. Even the whole thing with Yukina didn't feel too rushed. Like, she shows up, I think in episode 4 or 3, and then, you know, they have to go rescue her in episode 5. Obviously, Kuwabara falls in love with her at first sight, which isn't really a rushed thing. That's how it was in the original as well. Actually, was it? Did he like see the tape with her on it and then fall in love with her when he saw that? Either way, he, like, you know, he instantly, like, he's loving first sight, and he's dramatic. And let me tell you, like, the actors for all these characters were really good. They portrayed the characters very, like, accurately to their anime / manga counterparts. Do I know if I want to call out anyone in particular? They were all really good. Like, the thing is, like, they were all as exaggerated as you'd expect them to be. believably so, like to the extent where they embody the character. Tarukane is kind of like a secondary villain throughout the show, and his like appearance and mannerisms very much feel like a live action version of his character from the anime, like a large, nervous, conniving businessman. And yeah, it's good. It's good. It's not the best adaptation of the story, but it's a decent one. It's a fun one, and it's one that I don't think people will regret watching. I think that it will be divisive, and that some people will hate it even if they never watched the original. But it is something that I could definitely recommend going through, especially if you have like an afternoon to burn. Because again, it's only like less than 5 hours long. So yeah, definitely check it out. Regarding the English dub, I only listened to it for about half an episode. I didn't really. I'll say this: the dub voices are good. The voice actors doing the voices are great. You got a couple well-known ones in there, and if I didn't hear him voice this character because I turned the dub off by this point, but apparently Johnny Young Bosch is Kurama in this version, so I might go back and listen to an episode dubbed with him in it just to hear how he pulls that off. My personal thing was just like it's always weird for me hearing like dubbed live action stuff. I felt the same way about Squid Game. Like I tried watching Squid Game dubbed for like one episode, and I was just like, no. Gotta switch it back to the subs and just read the dialogue. I think that all the actors did a good job. I don't know if all the ones I heard would necessarily fit the characters. I'm not gonna single anyone out because again, it's not really their fault. They did a great job with the script. It's just that they were maybe I feel like they were applied to a character that wasn't the best choice for them. I'm only saying that not for every character. It was maybe for like one or two of them in the dub that I heard. But ultimately, I just chose to watch it subbed instead. It felt more natural for this because unlike like live action One Piece, this is done as an entirely Japanese thing. This wasn't done as like a worldwide international cast. This was done with a Japanese cast for Netflix Japan, and then they dubbed it and subbed it for America and all other regions. But yeah, it's good. Is it a necessary adaptation? No, absolutely not. This adaptation did not need to happen at all. They could have done like a reanimated version of the show. They could have done a new OAV, which I think they're supposed to, or they did. I still don't know what the deal with that is. But this is good for what it is. This is enjoyable, and I liked it, and I would watch more of it if it does exist at some point. And that's kind of all there is to say about it. It's short. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, because here's the thing, like, I was thinking, like, is there any standout moments that, like, are terrible? And the truth is, no, not really. It's competent the whole way through. They are very respectful to the source material, despite everything they had to cut out of it. And I think that it's an enjoyable watch. As for moments that stand out, again, all the fights, I don't think I've said this specifically, the fights are very well choreographed. They feel like anime fights. They make the characters feel powerful. They make them feel wild. They make them feel animated, and it works out. It's a good adaptation. Again, the Toguro fight at the very end is very well done. Both of them, both the younger and the older Toguro fights. I would just argue that all fights in general are well done. But yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, again, it's a kind of like a more serious movie style take on it. And yeah, I mean, if you like Yu Yu Hakusho and you have a Netflix sub, you got nothing to lose by watching it. You got nothing to gain either, but you got nothing to lose. So I do recommend it if you have the time. And yeah, that's all there is to say. Hakusho's great, and honestly, watching this makes me want to rewatch the anime now, because the anime is choice. Let me tell you.